Now, one of the things I found that's usually a little challenging whenever I'm doing a restoration, and especially if it's a two-stroke restoration that has these black side covers, and this just happens to be Dale's RZ, but I've done them on many other bikes too, that I want to make those engine cases shiny black. Now, I can do it with the paint I normally use, and I'm going to show that on this video. And it just turned out that Dale was doing some work on his RZ. We did some work on a tank. We did some other panels that needed restoration. But the engine cases themselves are a whole different issue because you have to take into account they get hot. Now, a two-stroke doesn't get as hot as a four-stroke. Doing the engine cases, and I happen to do this, I put this on the last question and answer video, but I wanted to expand on it a little bit just to show the cylinders and the heads can be done with real engine paint, and that's usually not high gloss black. But I did the engine covers on this bike, and they've held up well over the years. And when I finished this, I actually got to ride the bike for a few months before it went back to Florida to Ray. But it is my original race bike, and it's in the Straub family now, and it'll be there forever. And this is how we painted the cases. Now, this is actually Dale. And Dale came over, and he was doing the work on this. And he was very aggressive about, we were using, if I remember right, SOS. First thing to do, before you do anything, they have to be clean. So first thing is using Simple Green. It's a good idea. Simple Green or some degreasing type of soap, really degrease it. Because if you paint over grease, no matter what paint you use, the paint's not going to stick. Now, I always like to, if I know I'm going to be doing a part that I don't want any chance there's going to be paint peeling off, when I'm done, I use high pressure steam. And in this case, the combination of having the part clean, have the SOS pad etch it before we actually go on to the next step, and Dale had plenty of energy, and we really got this part real nice and clean. Now, his RZ is a real jewel, and I wanted to be that this was just like the one on the Rz350. That one held up real well. Now, I wasn't sure about this, but because this is a two-stroke, always remember the two-stroke engines don't get anywhere near as hot as a four-stroke. That's a given. And especially the exhaust, near the exhaust pipe. The exhaust on a four-stroke is 100 to 150 degrees hotter than a two-stroke. So after this is all etched, I call it etched, but that's with SOS pads. And we're going to take a little bit of sandpaper and get in all the reverse radiuses here with some, I think 600 paper is the way to do this. Doesn't really matter. The parts had a finish on them already that came from Yamaha, but what's important is to get all the little valleys etched and sanded, or else you run the risk that the paint is not going to stick there. And on a beautiful bike that's beautifully restored, and you have a beautiful engine case nice and shiny, and then to have a bubble or a chip or something where the paint isn't sticking, it's terrible. But anyway, I love working with Dale. He's as fussy as I am, maybe even fussier. And he has a wonderful collection of bikes that's on our channel. You can check out his collection. And among the bikes that he has that I really like is this Rz350. And this one is a real jewel. And on any of these old bikes, it's amazing. To me, an amazing thing happens when you take something that's flat black or not shiny and just make it shiny. And I've done that even to my MT-09. I've taken a part that's flat, make it a shiny painted part. It changes the whole look of the bike. Now, at this point when we were doing clear, we were using the 5-star, but I've used 4 or 5 different other kinds of, of clear. They've all basically worked the same. And they're all 4-to-1. Now, I would not, and being honest now, I wouldn't paint cylinders or heads. Maybe you could get away with it. I have painted some discs, the discs on my GS, the center part of the disc. But I know discs, if you're a track day kind of guy and you're riding very aggressively, the discs get red hot. May not be a great choice. But my GS, it seemed like it worked fine, and I never had a problem with the paint. I painted the calipers. They make special caliper paint, but I also used automotive paint, and I had good luck with it. But again, I'm not riding that bike super aggressively where everything gets hot and where let's say I'm not really putting it to the test. Now, I always, whenever I'm using 4-to-1, of course, anything 4-to-1, wear a mask, unless you have some compelling reason that you'd not do it. Anyway, here we are. The part is all etched, and that is ready. And now a final cleanup with some prep oil or some degreasing agent. And in some cases, I want to make a handle underneath it. I really didn't have to with this part, and because this is going to be a case, I don't have to prime it. This is definitely going to be just paint right over it with the black paint, and that fifth dimension paint. It's really funny that fifth dimension paint has painted an awful lot of stuff, and that is the least expensive paint they make. They make where we buy the paint, they make paint that's 3 to 4 times the price, and I've used the cheapest of this paint on many projects. Never found anything wrong with it at all. Now that is really just unbelievable how nice that came out. And what that hopefully will do, it'll add a dimension to the bike. I call it a dimension because you walk up to a bike and then you have the same bike, but you walk up, oh, that's different. Oh, that's shiny. Oh, that part's polished. Oh, that's anodized or something. You notice right away what it is. And this is I call it fifth dimension. It's really fourth dimension. And this is funny. This is very inexpensive paint. At the time we did this paint was like $30 a quart. Now the paint I bought is $309 a quart. I don't know who we blame for that, but anyway, blame China, I guess. Anyway, that part and the 4-to-1 clear over the top of the black, it just looked absolutely like a black pearl, just absolutely beautiful. And I always like to get at least 2 coats on, but again, or 3 coats even, but thin coats. Always many thin coats, not one big giant thick coat. Many of my people that I've taught to paint in my shop, the first error a beginner painter makes, they want to paint it all in one shot. And if you're patient and you're willing to wait, hey, say 15, 20 minutes, go put another thin coat on. Wait 15 minutes, put another thin coat on. Yeah, you don't want to do that when you're painting a car or work in a body shop by the hour. But in a case where you're painting your own stuff and time is not of the essence, and you want it to be perfect. And it's even worse for me. When I paint things for my friends, I want it to be better than the stuff I do for myself, because I don't want to, at the end of the whole job, have anybody look at something I did and say it's not as good as I could possibly make it. And I always try to look at it in the sunshine, look at it under fluorescent lights, and any little spot. Right now I would see a spot as I'm looking in the garage, it's drying. Any little spot that's not right, I want to fix it right now. I don't want to wait until it's a year old and then I go fix it. But this part really came out nice. Now, and when I saw this bike all assembled up at the Bikes and Breakfast, the first thing I did, I looked at these parts and the other work we had done on the bike, and the bike is really, really in nice shape. Now, I always let the first coats of 4-to-1 urethane, I always like, no matter what I'm going to do, I always like it to dry in a cold environment overnight. That's always, I never, unless there's some compelling reason, want to bring it in a house where it would dry quicker. When the urethane dries in cold weather like this, and I'm sure we're painting in cold weather here, what happens, it tends to lay down a lot nicer than if you flash dry it, or in some cases, if you take a hairdryer and try to force the drying, or if you live in a place where it's really hot. I don't know. Anyway, because I live in a place where most of the painting I do in cold weather, that has worked for me. And I'm never working where time is of the essence. Everything I do is based on the fact, like the Italians say, it's as if time doesn't exist. But at the end of it, whether I'm working on a project for myself or I'm working on, in this case, for a friend Dale, I don't want to compromise the quality. The quality is always the most important thing. Now, sanding this all down with, I think 600 was what we used. the whole part, get it scuffed down. This gets rid of all of the little tiny little specks of imperfection, or if it picks up dust, or if you're doing this in the summer, every once in a while you pick up a bug or something. But this is the step that puts it over the edge, that makes it really, if you detail every little corner, every little edge. It's very time consuming, but in the end, it's the best investment you can ever make. And the thing is, with a part like this, once it's restored and once it's the way you want it, the odds are good it's going to stay that way for the rest of your life. This is not something that, 2 years later, it's not like replacing the tires on a bike. So this is our final clear. And this, because everything is as flat, it's all sanded down now. When I was done with this part, I am sure, I'm positive, it was way nicer than a part if you went to Yamaha and bought a brand new part and put them side by side. The quality was much nicer. Of course, when they're doing production runs of things, they can't spend the time. You can if it's your custom bike. And again, because it's a two-stroke bike, that case is never going to get super, super hot. But the truth is, I've done some four-stroke cases also. And when I did them, I was thinking, well, what's the worst that can happen here? Well, the worst that can happen is I'm going to have to get the paint off and either polish it. That's always one of the choices. Or the other thing is then I can paint it with flat black engine paint. That's never one of the choices. But back and forth, back and forth. There are a lot of parts of the engine, and I would say the only exception for me is probably you could paint the valve covers too. If you had a reason to. Many bikes that have the valve covers where they're visible, I'm sure you could do that. And any two-stroke at all, you can do the cases. Now, virtually all of the parts I painted gloss black on the 750 Ninja. None of them have ever been a problem. I haven't had any issues at all. And a lot of the parts, in this case, there's some parts I painted that I was really skeptical. But I even did the side part that goes around by the crankshaft. But I did not try to paint the cylinders. That was the one I knew right away, maybe I'm getting a little too cute. But I guess you really have to just think that through before you paint. So I hope you did enjoy the video, and I hope this is a compliment to the last question and answer where I kind of glossed over this information. I wanted to include it in a more detailed way. I hope I've been able to do that. If you're new to our channel, we try to post up something every day. Do a lot of riding, or try to ride all seasons. This is a little preview, sneak preview from Scott. He picked this bike up, and I'm assuming he got it relatively inexpensively. And he's been following, and of course he's been following for many years, painting, and I've given him a lot of advice. He's been a good student. He painted that on. That's not a decal. He painted that Honda on. And here's the final thing. And he has a collection of bikes, and this is his bobber. He has several different varieties of bikes, some of everything. I like that kind of a collection myself. I hope you do too. And thank you so much for watching.